Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, folks. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. I am going to be reviewing Call of the Wild today, and I'm going to do it two set, basically. First is going to be spoiler-free, and then I'm going to be doing a spoiler review. So starting off with, let's get some stuff out of the way first. Apparently, this movie is on the fast track to lose $100 million. And as much as I do not like Disney, I am kind of on the fence of whether I want this movie to do badly. Because I actually liked this movie. And it's going to drive me nuts. Basically, this movie is about a dog named Buck who goes on a very incredible journey. He meets up with a human. This is all stuff that's already in the trailers, folks. So he meets, he was a dog that came from a privileged house in North America, in the United States. Then he gets kidnapped, basically, by a greedy guy. The guy sends him up north to be a sled dog, and he becomes a sled dog for a little bit. Then he meets up with Harrison Ford, or rather Harrison Ford kind of meets up with him, and then they take a journey together. It's a very, in my opinion, Call of the Wild is actually a very good movie. In my opinion. I do not say that often about Disney movies because, honestly, Disney has lost its way. But in this case, there was no agenda that I saw in this movie, unless it was so subtle that it didn't even feel like it was there. And if that is the case, then that is fine. If they want to push an agenda, but they don't do it but they do it only to the point where it's barely noticeable, that's fine. Because you're telling me you're not focusing on an agenda, you're focusing on the story. And if you want to tell a story or a movie that, that is agenda driven, but is supposed to be an adaptation from a novel like Call of the Wild, then you shouldn't make the movie. Now, this movie, a lot of people criticized the CGI dog, Buck, and the other dogs who were CGI because, let's face it, you need dogs that can emote in the way you want them to. So I understand their need to do a CGI rendering of each of the dogs that were in this movie, including the wolves and everything. One of the things I did like was the big black wolf with the flaming eyes. Now, that is a part that you see in the trailer. I'm not going to tell you what that wolf is yet because that is going to be a spoiler. They don't really explain it in the trailers. Now, the movie basically does take place during the Prospect era, the gold rush that was not in the United States, but way up in the Yukon. And basically, a lot of people don't know where the gold is. They think it's a myth and whatnot. They touch on it here and there. This movie paces well. It's a good pace movie. It's a good 3-act movie. It has a small first act, a medium second act, and a very good final large third act. It just ramps up each act, which is very enjoyable. Now, if you can look past the CGI, you will find that this is deep down the story and whatnot, it is a very good story. This story about Buck, how he went from a life of privilege to a sled dog to a companion It is a very wonderful story. It is a story that is like the older Disney movies, like Old Yeller and whatnot. It's good and it's ageless. And I think that Disney needs to go back to that kind of storytelling. If they can do that and stop pushing all this identity politics narratives like they're doing in other films, they will find that some people are willing to give them a chance more often than not. Now, yes, I am still very much against Disney because of the other reasons that everybody knows about. But I can honestly say that I can enjoy some of their content. I'm not going to blanketly boycott them 100% anymore. Because one reason is I have to, or I can no longer do the deal I had with my theater because of reasons that are going to remain unsaid, because it would risk things that are also going to be unsaid. Now, anybody in the chat, you can say hello, hello, hello. So let me know who's in. I noticed 2 people are watching. Always good to see. Now, with that out of the way, yes, I can't maintain my Disney boycott, sadly. Now, there are movies that I will not watch. How you doing, Cody? Now, there are movies that I will not watch. There are movies that I will not review. There are movies that I will go nowhere near due to Disney and certain personal aspects. I will not go near Mulan. Now, I will not review it. I will not watch it. I cannot, in good conscience, do that. But does that mean I am going to tell other people not to watch it? No, that is your choice to watch those movies. But returning back to Call of the Wild, we're still doing spoiler free, folks. I will let you know when we do spoilers. So, spoiler free, I'm going to give off the objective scores for, or the objective stuff first. Objectively, this movie is good, in my opinion, or objectively, it is good. The story is rich. The pacing is decent. The acting, it's not on par with very, very good Oscar-winning acting, obviously. I don't think this movie had a goal to make Oscar-worthy performances, but the story was very well. The acting and whatnot, even the dogs, even the CGI dog was good acting, because it showed intelligence behind the animal, even though the animal was not a real animal. Now, the music, the score, was very moving. It pulled at the right emotional strings. Cinematography, beautiful place, man. Cinematography, they had decent angles. They had perfect zoom quality and whatnot. Yeah, it was decent. The cutting, I thought, was good. I wish we had learned what happened to, or what happens to a few characters in the movie, but that is going to be set for spoilers. Sorry. I almost did spoil it. I dropped something. I'm sorry. Anyway, I think that basically this story, or objectively, I will give this movie a 4 out of 5. For a Disney movie, for me to give a Disney movie 4 out of 5, objectively or even subjectively, is a rare thing. Now, subjectively, I will give this movie a 5 out of 5. As shocking as it is, being a Disney movie and all, I liked this movie. I think it is a good movie. I really enjoyed it. It kept me engaged. I found myself wanting more of the story. That's hard for me to say with most of Disney's content. Disney has been letting a lot of people down lately. But this movie, it told a brilliant story. I thought Harrison Ford did a good job. I honestly did. Now, I don't know why a lot of people didn't or hated on this movie. Apparently, maybe Harrison Ford said some stuff behind the scenes and that got a lot of people to turn away from it. But you know what? I honestly thought this movie was good. So Moviegoer was also good. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 moviegoer because people can be entertained. They'll laugh. They'll cry. They'll have an emotional thrill ride. So yes, when it comes to that, I liked this movie overall. Now we are going to get into spoilers, folks. So that is the spoiler-free section. We are going to now dive into spoilers. So if you do not want spoilers for the film, I'm going to ask you to leave right now so you do not be spoiled. You can catch the rest of this live stream afterward. It's still going to be up on my channel. So if you want to watch the rest of it afterward, go watch the movie, then watch this. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're diving into spoilers now, folks, okay? Now, spoiler review for it, still, like I said, all the scores are going to remain the same. I like this movie. I like how they told the story, how Buck was very energetic. He was very spoiled. He was the dog of a judge. He belonged to a judge in old-time America. Now, he gets kidnapped by people who are looking for dogs or who are going to pay money for dogs. He gets sent up to the Yukon area. He's never seen snow. He has the reactions. You feel bad for Buck. It's a good story about Buck. And when Buck finally gets picked up by a mailman who does sledding, dog sledding and whatnot, he picks him up. He's like, or the woman's like, we needed 2 dogs. He's big. He'll work. And she's not so, or she's a native, but she's like, not so sure. And Buck remember, he's a spoiled dog. He's probably got a little fat on his bones because of his being from a privileged household. So when he does his first sledding, he's ready to just keel over because he hasn't really worked like that. He hasn't worked. He hasn't gotten into labor and whatnot. Now, Spitz is the alpha of the dog sled team. He's the husky. He does not like Buck at all. I can't remember the other dogs' names. And Spitz is a kind of a douchebag alpha. He steals food from the other dogs, basically letting them know who's boss and whatnot. And when Buck is witnessing this, he steps in. Buck is a character that does not like bullies, basically. But he's also a gentle giant, so to speak, until he taps into his instinct. Now, when he is first learning the ropes of dog sledding, how they stop and what they have to do in the snow in order to sleep and stay warm, how they got to dig in and let the snow basically create a blanket over them, that is when he first sees the wolf. The big black wolf with the glowing yellow eyes that are like fiery eyes. And you don't know exactly what it is because at first it's there, but then it's gone. So obviously it was never really there to begin with, but Buck is seeing it. What Buck doesn't realize is this is his instinct. This is his call of the wild, so to speak. This is basically his inner primal self reaching out to him to help him survive in the wild. And then he starts, how you doing, Happy? So then he starts getting used to it, or being a sled dog and whatnot. He's at the back of the pack, basically, at this point, still at the back of the pack. Now, there's the point where they're on the ice, the sledders, I haven't read the book. I think I might actually have. I am going to read the book later, but I honestly do think that it is worth reading. This movie, to be clear, folks, happy dinosaur, good to see you. I like it. Again, I like this movie. It's rare for me to say that about Disney movies nowadays. But moving on, they're on the ice, and to see if they can find a way through, they're checking the ice, basically tapping it, seeing if it's safe to cross, and the woman falls through, and Buck, without hesitation, runs right in to help her, saves her, and that's the second time you see the spirit wolf, or Buck's instincts and whatnot. And Buck cracks through the ice, saves her, but he then falls through again. Everybody thinks he's dead, including the sledder and audience and everyone, but you find out he's not. He made it out of the ice. And you then see Spitz, the husky, the leader of the pack. He's not liking the fact that Buck is showing him up. He doesn't like how Buck is getting favor from the humans. He doesn't like that Buck is outshining him. So, yeah, Spitz is taking food from the others. He is at a little bit of a watering area where he's not letting the others drink until he's done. But then Buck goes over to the ice thing, starts pushing through the ice with his paws, and then he's letting other people drink. Spitz is noticing this and whatnot. So after Buck finally saves these people, or saves the rider or the mailman's assistant, the native woman, he then sees a rabbit, and he gives chase to the rabbit. And the other dogs are liking Buck. They like him, except for Spitz. Spitz doesn't like Buck. He's jealous of Buck because Buck keeps showing him up. So when Buck finally catches the rabbit, he catches it, and then he lets it go because he can finally say that I finally caught a rabbit. Because in the beginning of the movie, he sees a rabbit, he couldn't catch the rabbit. The rabbit got out of reach of him. Now, he lets the rabbit go, and that's when Spitz kills the rabbit. Basically, he has had enough of Buck at this point, and he's going to show the rest of the pack that he's the alpha, and they need to stop listening to Buck, stop being this playful group of dogs, and get back in line and whatnot. And you really learn that you don't really like Spitz. Spitz has had enough. So Spitz basically bites into Buck, throws him around using his own weight to kind of swing Buck around and whatnot. And he puts Buck on the ground, does the whole marking, not peeing, but sloughs snow onto him from behind. And then you see the wolf again. And this is when you're going to finally realize that this wolf it's the third time that you basically understand this wolf is Buck. It's Buck. It's his inner animal. It is his inner wild side. And it's basically telling him to get up and fight back. And that's when he does. The other dogs, there's one dog that doesn't bark. It's silent. But when it sees Buck is on the ground, he starts to hoarsely start barking until he finds his bark again. And Spitz is going to attack that dog. But when Buck finally gets up and Spitz is like, all right, fine, round two, Buck basically grabs him with his mouth, lifts him up, and just slams him down, puts his paw on him, basically letting him know that if you continue, I'm going to kick your ass. So Spitz basically understands this, and he realizes the terrible truth does Disney make the dog rap in this version? No, the dog does not rap in this version. The dogs do not talk in this version, but they don't really need to talk. You understand their emotional expressions quite well because of the CGI aspect. But basically, these animals, you understand them because of the CGI aspect. Yes, they're not perfectly done CGI, but if you can overlook that, I think that you can actually or like the story. Honestly, I do. Now, because Spitz is lost, he has, it's called alpha shame, basically. An alpha can do two things. One, he can accept that he is no longer alpha, or two, he will go into such a deep shame that he would rather die alone than serve under the one that he tried putting in line. Spitz chose the latter. He walks off, tail between his legs, into the dead, cold night. And the owner realizes this. We watched a cartoon movie in high school where the dogs talked, and I'm glad they don't talk in the Disney version. Yeah, they don't talk in this. This was basically kind of based in a more realistic setting. And so the owner's calling for Spitz. He can't understand why Spitz is gone, but they're going to have to leave without him if they want to get the mail delivered on time to Dawson. So Buck steps up to the plate, but he's like, the other dog has 5 years on you. Just because you're big doesn't mean you can lead. So the other dog does not want to be out, or does not want to be the leader. All the dogs are following Buck because Buck showed up Spitz. They respect Buck. Buck respects them. And so Buck just goes into the back of the line, and he knows the human's going to accept it eventually. So he just lays down, and he's like, all right, just wait. He'll come around. So when the other dog finally runs back to the back of the thing, he's like, all right, fine, Buck, get up here. And Buck gets up. The dogs immediately go attentive, and they actually make it through, or they actually make the time. Now, because Buck is being so fast with his new position as leader, he's running, and the guy is celebrating. He's happy as a clam, shouting out and whatnot, and he accidentally triggers an avalanche. So it's like, oh, good job, you dumbass. But that is when you will see in the trailer is when you see the wolf again. Because Buck is, or the guy wants Buck to go left away from the avalanche, and it's like, you're not going to outrun an avalanche. So Buck is looking. Buck is searching. He's wondering, what am I going to do? Then he sees the wolf. And he looks below, and he sees the ice wall. So Buck turns immediately. He follows his instinct. He goes through the ice wall, and it's safe away from the avalanche, but you're still racing the avalanche. And because he was able to take that route and whatnot, they all get to Dawson on time. And that's when Buck realizes that it's not just mail that they're delivering. It's hope, it's life, it's love, just as the owner says. And for a couple more days and whatnot, weeks, they're making the same run. Or just before they take off, after they make it on time for the first time, Harrison Ford comes back down, and he wants to deliver a letter. He's like, you should have delivered it when he picked up. But Buck is not going to go anywhere because he realizes that it's important. And also that previous night is the almost last time you see the spirit wolf, basically, the instinct of Buck. It's when the wolf looks at Buck, basically saying, you don't need me anymore right now, or you no longer need me. So the spirit wolf walks off and disappears into the wind. And Buck, he howls, basically to kind of mourn what he thought was a helper, a spirit animal, so to speak. Buck didn't realize at that point that it was his instincts. This movie is so freaking powerful, folks, and I absolutely love it. And so later on, the mail is discontinued because the telegraph or the telegram is now making its way up to the Yukon area, and Perot is the guy's name. He has to sell the dogs. So then a prospector, a rich prospector, wants all the gold, and he doesn't know the first thing about sledding and whatnot. He purchases the dogs. The dogs are trying to pull, but his damn rudders are frozen into the ground and whatnot. And Harrison Ford tries talking to him to do not beat the dogs and this and that. But the guy he's just a greedy asshole, and he doesn't listen. And so he's like, those dogs will pull, and they'll die doing it. Don't do that to them. Because everybody thinks that the gold is dried up, but this guy, he wants the gold. He's a prospector. He's greedy and all that stuff. So the dogs are unfortunately given to this rich guy, and they're pulling, and they're having a hard time because the spring thaw is coming. And so Buck has run himself ragged because of this slave driving prospector, and Harrison Ford's character goes up and saves Buck and tries to tell the guy, these dogs are trying to save your life, because if you go across that river right now, you're going to get swept away. You're going to die. And he doesn't care. The guy doesn't care. Anyway, Harrison cuts Buck loose. 2 days, he's been asleep. You don't see the dogs ever again. You think they're dead, but apparently they run off instead, because the prospector comes back after 2 days. His companions have left him. The dogs have left him and whatnot. And he attacks Harrison Ford. Buck comes to his rescue and whatnot. Buck then finds a companion in Harrison Ford. And Harrison starts drinking because it's his son, or he's remembering his son, and he's drinking because his son died. And Buck notices that the alcohol is not good. He doesn't like the alcohol. He doesn't like how it smells. He doesn't like what happens with Harrison Ford. He takes his bottle of alcohol and buries it and sits on the damn bottle so Harrison Ford can't get to it. So then the next day, Harrison has the epiphany that he can go on this journey. He wants to go on this journey that his son wanted to go on. And Buck and him go on the journey. They go on the boat. You see in the trailer and whatnot. This movie was wonderful. I really liked it. Again, folks, I have a hard time with Disney. I do not like Disney. But I cannot deny that this movie, I enjoyed it. Now, a lot of people, if they don't want to watch it, you don't have to. But guess what? I actually did enjoy this movie. And if I had to pay to see it, I had to pay to see it. And I'm glad I did in this case. Does that mean that I feel good about supporting Disney? No. But I am going to watch it in high quality in order to review it. And I enjoyed this movie. And so, yeah. The prospector gets thrown out of the bar because he attacked Harrison Ford. And after Harrison and Buck go out to off the map, so to speak, on their journey, the prospector is looking to murder Harrison Ford because Harrison Ford had him embarrassed and whatnot. So he finds the map that Harrison drew to show Buck to go off the map, and he then realizes, all right, we're going to go, or he knows where they're going. And apparently Buck and Harrison find a prospector's hut, or prospector's cabin. And they clear out the cabin of all the cobwebs and stuff, and they live there. You hear the wolves howling. And so Harrison Ford is basically swimming in the river near the cabin, and he sees a little golden nugget, an ingot. Picks it up, and he actually finally realized, holy crap, they actually did find the gold. The myth is true. And so you see that Harrison gets a little greedy at first. He's fine, and he's like, or Buck picks up a piece of rock from the river. He's like, no, Buck, like this. He holds up a little shiny thing, and Buck picks up this fucking huge nugget of gold. It's like, the fuck? But he's like, drops it. And then he finds another little one, picks it up, and that's when Harrison Ford looks. It's, oh my God, it was so freaking, that was a funny moment. And at this point, you know that the prospector is on the hunt for Harrison Ford. He knows where he is and whatnot. And I'm just waiting for this guy to show up, but it keeps you pacing because Buck finds a wolf. And so Harrison Ford tells Buck, go on, have fun, investigate. He meets a bear. Buck finally meets this female wolf. She goes up to him. He puts his hand up to kind of like beg at her, or kind of like a human gesture to shake hands or whatnot. She smacks his paw away and runs off. Well, Buck is slowly realizing there's others out there that are like me. And he then goes out again watching these wolves, and the female white wolf sees him again, is kind of annoyed by it, but they're all hunting, or the wolf pack is hunting, and Buck's watching them, and one of the wolves gets caught in the river by shifting rocks, and Buck doesn't hesitate. His instinct kicks in again. Save the dog, or save this thing that is like me. And so the wolf gets caught by a fallen tree near the rapids, and Buck shifts the tree to pull the dog out of the river, or the wolf out of the river, sorry. And so they kind of accept Buck, reluctantly at first, but then they start to warm up to him. This story is so freaking rich, folks. And Buck knows to go around the bear. The bear doesn't like Buck in his territory, but Buck can get around the bear. And Harrison notices that Buck is going for longer and longer and longer, and he realizes he's found something out there that's keeping him out there. And Harrison, now that he has a decent amount of gold, it's time that he wants to return home. And he says, tomorrow morning is when I'm going to return, or is when I'm leaving, Buck. But you stay here. You found something here. So, yeah. But later that night, while Harrison is writing a letter to his wife, well, that's when the prospector finds him, tries shooting him in the cabin, and that's Buck hears the shot, and immediately, or the cabin also goes up in flames, because when the guy shot at Harrison, he hit the gas lamp, which sets the cabin on fire. Now the gold is outside still. He has it in his pocket, and they get into a fight, and Harrison gets shot. And he gets shot basically in the gut, or not in the gut, but basically in the liver area, I'm thinking. But the guy wants the gold, and he's like, here, throws the gold at him. He's like, it's everywhere, literally everywhere. And as the guy's about to finish off Harrison, that's when Buck saves him. And the guy realizes that, or Buck destroys the gun. So the guy pulls the club. Now, I didn't cover this earlier. The guy that pulls Buck out of the box when he first gets kidnapped, he clubs Buck. He hits Buck with the club when Buck tries to get out or escape. And Buck sees the claw marks, sees the bite marks, and the guy says, this has survived more dogs than you. Now all you have to do is just learn to listen to it and heed it. You ain't going to win this, basically. He got Buck to submit to the club. And Buck had those memories when the other guy broke out, or when the prospector pulls the club. Now, but Buck, because of some of his experiences, yes, at first he is afraid, but then he rips the club out of the guy's hand when he swings, and then he tackles the guy into the burning house, and that's when, or the cabin, and that's when the cabin falls down onto. Now you don't see the guy die on screen, but you basically get the point. He is dead. Now Harrison Ford, he's been killed, or he's dying. So he has some soft words with Buck. Buck brings a picture of his son to him and the notebook that he was writing in, and he stays with Harrison until Harrison passes on. And the next day, the fire has gone out, the cabin is burnt, and Buck is now truly alone, except that the wolves are still with him. He's part of their pack, and the female wolf, which becomes his companion, becomes his beta, basically. He becomes the alpha of that pack because he saved the alpha of that pack. So they accept him into that pack. Now, Buck realizes he has something. He may have lost his companion, but he has gained his pack, or he has gained a pack. He is not alone. And so you find out, or some time has passed, you see Buck has some puppies or has some cubs with the wolf, and they talk about the rare breed in the Yukon of timber wolves. And you see some little hybrid pup wolves, and you also see that Buck is leading the pack. And there's the grizzly bear that's in the river, and Buck just goes right up to that grizzly bear, even when it's doing all of its intimidation displays, and it realizes Buck's not backing down. And so the bear runs off because it is actually scared of this animal that has stood up to it. Even though that's not realistic, but still it sensed that Buck would not back down. Now, then Buck is running with his pack, hunting and whatnot in the Yukon, and he looks at his pack, and then he looks to the side, and he sees the spirit animal one last time. Basically, his instinct is looking on him in pride, with pride, basically saying, you have answered your call. You have found your way. You no longer need me. And it's a wonderful little narration from Harrison Ford. And it is a very touching movie, folks, and that's where it ends. And I gotta say, I enjoyed that movie. Yes, it's a Disney movie. It sucks that it's a Disney movie, but it's a good Disney movie, and I will admit when Disney does a good job. It's few and far between, but they did a good job with this one. Anyway, folks, yes, I gave you basically the whole rundown of the damn story for a spoiler review. The only things I really had issue with was the CGI could have been touched up a tiny bit better. But other than that, honestly, I had a good, enjoyable experience watching this movie. And I think that it should be doing better. It shouldn't lose $100 million. I think that this movie should have done a lot better. Maybe the marketing was bad. Maybe Harrison Ford opened his fucking mouth. Maybe somebody opened their mouths and said the movie's agenda driven. Who knows? All I know is that this movie should not lose $100 million in the box office. This movie should have done a lot better than that. Anyway, folks, that is going to be my video for tonight. And that has been my both non-spoiler and spoiler review for Call of the Wild. Do I recommend this movie? I recommend a movie for everyone unless it is a truly shit movie. So yes, I will recommend this movie. See it however you wish. Allegedly not legally or legally or whatever. I am not telling anybody to see a movie, but hold on. She just talked at me weirdly. I did not say her name. I said allegedly. Yes, stupid shit. Anyway, folks, I'm not advocating for anybody to watch a movie illegally or legally. or I'm going to tell you, just watch the movie yourself, however way you wish. Make up your own mind. I always tell people, yes, I enjoy a movie, but I want people to make up their own minds when it comes to movies. I will recommend this movie because it's a good movie. In my opinion, this movie is a good movie. Objectively, it's a good movie, even with the bad special effects. Yes, it has the CGI dogs and all, but other than that, the movie is good. So I don't know why it's not doing well in the box office. Now, does that mean I want it to do well in the box office? I'm on the fence. But still, this movie was decent. And I think that people should give it a chance. It shows that Disney can do a story and tell a good story without agenda. And that's all that people want. Movies without agendas. Movies without the identity politics, the racism, the stupid sexism. Do a good story like Call of the Wild. Anyway, folks, that is going to be the video. Y'all know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. If you have seen Call of the Wild in theaters, let me know what you thought of it. Give your objective and your subjective opinion. Give it your moviegoer opinion. Let me know all your thoughts. And if you disagree with me, that is fine. I have this banner right here. Hold on. Different opinions are welcome. If you have a different opinion than me, fine. Share it. I will accept a difference of opinion. And we got a new comment. I don't think you don't need a good effects to make a good movie, as long as you tell a good story. Exactly, Happy Dinosaur. Exactly. If you tell a good story, and yes, the effects could be better, it still doesn't take away from the fact that the story was good. Now, folks, again, if you have a difference of opinion than me, that is fine. But see this movie, make up your own mind, and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below when we are not live. Anyway, folks, this has been Orange Hat Reviews, and I will catch you all on the next one.